What happens when a Hollywood icon walks into a talk show expecting a thoughtful conversation and walks out in complete silence? This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was Denzel Washington, one of the most respected, decorated, and dignified actors of our generation, finding himself in the middle of a daytime TV clash that would shake the entertainment world and spark a massive cultural conversation. It all began harmlessly enough. Denzel had been invited on The View to plug his new movie, a gripping drama about redemption and humanity. The mood was lively, the crowd was energized, and the veteran actor was warmly welcomed with sustained applause. Joy Behar, the show's longtime co-host, started with praise, dubbing Denzel one of the greatest actors alive. The audience concurred. Denzel smiled modestly and started to discuss the psychological pathos behind his latest role. But suddenly, things took a decisive turn. Joy changed subjects, shifting the discussion from art to politics. She asked Denzel what he thought about American leadership today, noting that he had played many powerful men throughout his career. Denzel answered quietly but firmly, "I like to keep my politics private." But Joy didn't leave it there. She pressed him again and again, insisting that celebrities have a duty to speak out, to take a stand, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Then came the moment that changed everything. Joy, pushing harder, asked, "So you'll take a stand in a movie, but not in real life?" The room fell dead silent. Even co-hosts like Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin looked visibly stunned. The audience didn't know whether to clap or cringe. Denzel leaned forward, his voice lower, firmer, more intense. "I act in movies. That's my art. I'm not here to lecture America. I'm here to tell stories." Still, Joy wouldn't back down. She accused him of using celebrity privilege by choosing to remain silent on political issues. That's when Denzel drew the line. "You don't get to sit there and tell me how to use my voice," he said. "Maybe people need to think better." The crowd exploded in applause. The energy in the studio shifted completely. What was supposed to be a promotion turned into a live confrontation. And then, the moment no one expected, Denzel stood up. "I came here to talk about art, not to be cornered. This isn't why I do what I do." And with that, he walked off the stage, leaving behind stunned hosts, a shocked audience, and a studio scrambling to recover. But that was only the beginning. In minutes, the web went wild. Trending globally were hashtags such as #She or Denzel walks out and #G respect Denzel. TikTok videos of his walk-off racked up millions of views. Fans and celebrities came out in support of him, admiring his calm, his boundaries, and his refusal to be goaded into a soundbite. The View released a perfunctory, sterile comment asserting, "Live TV brings unexpected moments." Joy Behar, on the other hand, doubled down, declining to apologize and stating, "I don't regret asking tough questions." Off-stage, pandemonium broke out. Producers were livid. The show's reputation with potential A-list guests was bruised. According to reports, some celebrities canceled future appearances, not wanting to risk the same treatment. And Denzel? He did not scream. He did not rage. He waited. Then the following morning, he uploaded a subdued 47-second video to Instagram. Sometimes you enter a room hoping for conversation and exit having learned it was a confrontation. I have all respect for good dialogue, but won't be baited into sound bites. I wish The View the best. That video broke the internet everywhere once again. Not with anger, but with grace. Folks declared it a masterclass in emotional intelligence. This is the tale of what actually happened, and why the world couldn't stop discussing it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is walk away with their dignity intact. Stay tuned, because the full truth behind Denzel's stormy exit from The View is deeper than any headline. And we're breaking it all down. Right now. In a surprise moment that left both the studio audience and viewers at home stunned, Oscar-winning actor Denzel Washington hit the headlines after walking off the set of The View following a heated and unexpected confrontation with Joy Behar. What began as a casual interview turned into a heated showdown, leaving co-hosts speechless and fans on fire on social media. So what really happened on that stage? What drove one of Hollywood's most centered and regarded actors to the edge? Here's a breakdown of the moment that has everyone in shock, from the initial cringeworthy question to the abrupt departure. The studio of The View was abuzz with anticipation as the crowd made their way into the theater, looking forward to what was hyped to be one of the most lively shows of the week. The lighting, the laughter, the bright morning repartee among the co-hosts. It was all standard fare for the popular daytime talk show. But all of them had no idea what was in store. The studio buzz went through the roof when the producers made the announcement that the guest had arrived. Denzel Washington, a name that immediately demands respect, admiration, and excitement. As the applause began, Denzel emerged onto the stage with his quintessential calm confidence. Wearing a smart charcoal gray suit and black shirt, he gave a flash of his classic smile and warmly greeted each host with handshakes and dignified nods. The audience applauded him to their feet even before a single question was asked. That is the aura of Denzel. Co-host Whoopi Goldberg, a veteran herself in the acting profession, glowed with pride. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no need to introduce this man. The brilliant, the bold, the one and only, Denzel Washington. The energy was electric. Denzel had appeared on the program to promote his new film, a psychological drama with rich emotional undertones. As soon as he started talking, he had the audience in the palm of his hand. His voice, deep, even, and interesting, resonated as he told behind-the-scenes anecdotes, shared personal insights, and the heart he gave to the role. Each character I play, Denzel replied, bills me about myself. This one, it tested me in ways I didn't know. The host leaned in. There were a few remarks made about his longtime reputation for not aging, some light joshing about being everybody's celebrity crush, and then the tone shifted, gradually but perceptibly. Joy Behar, with her quick wit and straight shooting style, leaned forward with a half smile and asked what appeared to be a throwaway question. With so many powerful performances, Malcolm X, Reuben Carter, Whip Whitaker, Macbeth, all of these men struggled with truth, morality, and leadership. So I have to ask, as a man who has portrayed so many voices of strength, what do you think of the current leadership in America? Politics aside, where do you think we are as a nation? There was a momentary pause. Denzel smiled agreeably, but the shift in his attitude was slight. His shoulders squared. He blinked once, twice. Well, he spoke deliberately, I like to keep my politics personal. I'm an actor, not a politician. I tell stories. That's where I focus my energy. The reaction was respectful, measured, and non-confrontational. But Joy, likely recognizing the potential for a viral moment, or possibly simply extending her typical boundaries, didn't let it pass. But Denzel, she went on, you're not just an actor, you're an icon, a voice. When you speak, people listen. Don't you think silence from icons, particularly during these troubled times, can be just as loud? There it was. The atmosphere changed. You could sense it. The playful energy on stage turned into a stilted tension that clung like fog. Denzel hesitated before he answered. His eyes slightly narrowed, not in anger, but in consideration. You could tell that he was weighing each word very carefully. Joy, he replied, voice steady but firm. I think the best way to communicate is through action, through the work that I do, through the people I advocate for and empower. I've never been one to climb on pedestals or bandwagons because I'm supposed to. Some applause from the audience ensued. Some people nodded, but Joy wasn't finished. Yes, but isn't it the role of public personalities to leverage their platform on actual issues in the world? She continued. I mean, when we're discussing injustice, inequality, or political instability, neutrality can appear as shying away. The room fell conspicuously silent. Denzel's demeanor didn't shift much, but his voice did. There's a distinction between neutrality and discretion, he replied. I'm not shying away from anything. I simply prefer not to yell over other people. That does not signify I'm quiet. Whoopi, realizing where this was going, attempted to shift gears. She interjected with a soft laughter. Okay, let's not put Denzel in the lion's den too early in the morning. Laughter filled the air, yet tension still hung there. Joy smiled, but it was obvious she wasn't about to drop the thread. She leaned in once more, this time more point blank. So when the world is on fire and voices are called for, you don't think it's your place to be heard, even when millions of fans are looking up to you? Denzel exhaled, the kind of exhale that isn't about catching breath, but about holding back emotion. With all due respect, I didn't come here to justify my existence, he said. I came to discuss art, storytelling, humanity, the work I've spent decades creating. If someone must hear a message from me, they'll get it in my films, in my interviews, in the way I live, not from a 10-second snippet that gets ripped out of context. A murmur of wow passed through the studio audience. Even Sonny Hostin was stunned. Joy, obviously caught off guard by Denzel's calm but firm defense, offered a strained smile. Fair enough, she grumbled, looking at her notes. But the following silence spoke louder than anything else. This was no longer a marketing interview. It had become an unplanned philosophical debate, and one that Denzel had no interest in pursuing. He looked over at the camera, then over at the producers standing just off stage, discreetly conveying his unease. But always the professional, he didn't rise. Not yet. He remained seated, arms crossed, patiently waiting for somebody to guide the show back into shape. The other host stumbled for a moment to recover. Ana Navarro made an attempt at a joke. Whoopi attempted to change the subject, but the harm was done. The viewers could sense it. The mood had changed. That glow of warmth and friendliness that Denzel carries onto the set faded, and not due to anything he said, but because the discussion crossed a line that need not have been tested in that manner. The episode was over soon after with stilted applause. Denzel tried to smile, but it wasn't the same. He gazed into the camera as they went to commercial time, a gaze that told it all. This wasn't what I signed up for. And as the show went to black during the break, the energy behind the scenes started to ripple. Producers congregated, assistants whispered, co-hosts exchanged glances. They all knew. Something unforgettable had just occurred. The air was already charged. Following Joy Behar's intense questioning in the last segment, Denzel Washington had obviously become suspicious of where the conversation was heading. Nevertheless, always a professional, he attempted to steer back onto more secure terrain. The movie. He smiled graciously, took a short breath, and addressed the audience directly. You see, he started, what attracted me to this movie wasn't the politics or the spectacle. It was the redemption theme. This guy begins broken, angry, and alone. But through actual human connections, he starts to find his humanity again. That's the message that I believe everybody needs today. Not division, not debate, but empathy. A spark of applause from the audience. He was trying to bring the moment back to art, to the passion that brought him to the show in the first place. But Joy Behar wasn't ready to move on. She shifted in her chair, narrowed her eyes just slightly, and delivered a line that would ignite the spark into full-on flames. So you'll take a stand in a movie, but not in real life? The words lingered in the air like smoke from a gunshot. There was a collective gasp from the studio audience. Even the people in the back rows of the studio straightened up in their seats. The camera panned over to Whoopi Goldberg, whose eyes grew wide as she pursed her lips. Sonny Hostin gave the slightest raise of her eyebrows as if to say, "Did she just go there?" Denzel didn't respond right away. For a few seconds, time stood still. You could hear the soft hum of the studio lights. Even the host looked bewildered about what was going to happen next. Then slowly and deliberately, Denzel leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low and measured. I act in films. That is my art. I'm not here to lecture America. I'm here to tell stories. The answer was assertive but polite. His voice didn't rise. He didn't berate. But anyone familiar with Denzel could sense that something had changed in him. This was no longer about a movie promo game. This had become personal. But Joy Behar, either not noticing the building tension or set on making a statement, pressed again. But with all due respect, Denzel, she said, fixing her glasses, a platform such as yours is not without responsibility. There are some actors who speak up, who risk everything for justice, for truth. Don't you think to remain quiet, particularly when your voice might make a difference, is a form of privilege? The room fell silent once more. The subject of celebrity privilege had now been broached. That's when everything shifted. Denzel's eyes did not blink. He gazed straight at Joy. His face was no longer a face of polite disagreement. It was hard and focused, serious and decidedly disappointed. He leaned forward, his tone more acute than before, but still meticulously measured. "Joy," he declared, "you don't know me. You don't know what I do when these cameras stop rolling. You don't know what causes I support behind closed doors, who I mentor off camera, who I donate to without sharing it with the world. So let me set you straight. I don't have celebrity privilege. I have a sense of purpose, and I prefer not to turn every move I make into a headline." The audience responded with applause. It wasn't deafening. It was steady, intentional, affirming. Many applauded not so much for what he had to say, but the way he said it. Peaceful, serene, and with honor. Joy Behar, visibly surprised, laughed uncomfortably. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings," she said, but it could be seen that the tension was now no longer avoidable. But Denzel wasn't done. "I've been doing this for more than 40 years. I've watched the world shift. I've watched people use celebrity as a weapon, and I've watched people vanish after attempting to speak from a place of hurt. You want to know what I do for my community? I show up. I teach. I fund programs. I lift others. Not for applause, not for views, but because it's right. That's leadership, too." The crowd cheered again. Even Whoopi, who had remained pretty quiet during the rising exchange, nodded and chimed in softly. "You're absolutely right, Dee." But Joy still wouldn't drop it. "But don't you think there are some things that are just too big to be silent about? I mean, we're living in crazy times. Don't people need strong voices now more than ever?" This time, it wasn't only Denzel who responded. You might be able to hear one of the crew audibly sigh. Some audience members shook their heads. The tension was no longer subtle. It was palpable. Denzel drew a second breath, this time slowly. "Joy, let me ask you something," he replied, turning the tables. "What do you think makes you believe my silence is not acting? What do you think makes you believe I'm not doing precisely what has to be done, just not the way you do it?" Joy did not answer immediately. Then Denzel made the comment that would go viral on Twitter moments later. "We don't all need to yell into microphones to make a difference. Some of us build foundations in silence." Boom. The camera cut to the other hosts, who were clearly uncomfortable, but also very much respectful at that moment. Even Joy Behar, famous for holding her ground at all costs, seemed taken aback. But the moment wasn't only powerful, it was telling. Here was Denzel Washington, a man who knew the pinnacle of Hollywood and the depths of life's struggle, holding his ground not only with words, but with presence, dignity, and truth. And still, the damage was done. The warmth that had filled the room at the start of the segment had long dissipated. The studio lights remained, but the glow between host and guest was extinguished. Denzel reclined in his chair, folded his arms, and glared off into the audience. Not mad, not belligerent, but firm. You could see he was gone mentally. The line had been crossed. The cameras kept rolling. Producers were now gesturing wildly from offstage to cut to commercial. Whoopi finally interrupted, obviously attempting to defuse the moment. "All right, we're going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere." As the show faded to commercial, Denzel reached for his microphone and calmly unclipped it. He stood up, looked at the hosts, nodded politely, and walked off set. Not in anger, but with a grace that said everything without needing a single extra word. The studio audience was not sure if they should applaud or remain quiet. Some people rose to their feet, others stood immobile. Whatever it was, this was no publicity stunt. This was genuine, raw, and unchoreographed. Hisses broke out backstage. Producers trailed Denzel along the corridor, begging forgiveness. One of them offered him his jacket. Another attempted to persuade him to return for a second item. But Denzel graciously refused. "This isn't why I came," he said. "This isn't the conversation I agreed to have." In the studio again, Joy Behar appeared visibly rattled. She smoothed her pile of cue cards, clearly aware, maybe too late, that she had crossed a line. The moment had come to a boil. Following Joy Behar's constant grilling and her inflammatory comment on Denzel's celebrity privilege, The emotional undertow that had been brewing beneath the surface finally erupted. What was intended to be a sleek, contained daytime interview now became raw. It became real. Denzel Washington, a man who is characterized by his self-control, his calm under fire, and his unflappable dignity, suddenly wasn't smiling any longer. His expression clouded. Not with anger, but with disappointment, in shock. His eyebrows creased in the slightest, lips pursed into a thin line as he deliberately shifted his eyes back to Joy, still clutching her cue cards, oblivious of being on the precipice of becoming the focal point of a viral storm. And then Denzel leaned into his mic, his voice an octave lower, deep and measured. The sort of tone that slices through interference and leaves no doubt in anyone's mind. "Let me be clear," he went on. "I've worked my entire life with integrity, with respect, for the craft, and for people. You don't get to sit there and tell me how to use my voice." The crowd, skeptical at first, suddenly burst into applause. Loud, bold, unapologetic. Not for Joy, not for The View, for Denzel. The message had landed. But Joy, clearly cornered and perhaps embarrassed by the surprise backlash, attempted to spin the situation. "Just asking questions people are thinking," she responded defensively, rolling her shoulders and glancing about at the other host as if looking for approval. That's when Denzel, not missing a beat, counterattacked with an answer so crisp, so concise, it would be quoted on social media status updates, news headlines, and even memes by evening. "Then maybe people need to think better." Boom. The breath was stolen from the room. The same audience that had just applauded a few seconds prior now sat transfixed. Eyes wide, quiet, some with mouths partially agape, wondering if they were witnessing a television talk show or a live settling of scores. The camera operators remained in their positions, but did not move. One of them, stuck on the periphery of the shot, reflexively looked toward the director for direction, but the director, shell-shocked, did not indicate anything. Even Whoopi Goldberg, usually the show's anchor in stressful situations, seemed uncomfortable. Her hands, clasped, crept slowly open as she leaned forward towards Denzel to try to fill the widening chasm between guest and host. "D, I know where your heart is," she said softly, "and I know you didn't come here to have this type of back and forth. Sometimes we get passionate. It's live TV. Things happen." She glanced over at Joy with a slight sense of desperation in her eyes, pleading to her silently to back down, to give up. But it was too late, because to Denzel this wasn't about a difference of opinion, it was about respect, something he had based his entire career on. "I was here to discuss art," he replied, "not to be cornered, not to be held accountable for not doing my values in a manner that serves someone else's agenda. That's not why I do what I do." The way that he spoke, direct, calm, unwaveringly truthful, shut down any further argument. And then, the moment that framed it all, with a quiet sigh, Denzel leaned back in his chair, got up, and gazed into the crowd. Not the hosts, not Joy, the crowd, the people he came for, the ones who had been with him for decades, through performances that challenged hearts and shifted minds. "I respect each and every one of you," he said quietly, "and I appreciate you listening to me. But I don't wish to engage in a discussion that doesn't start with respect for one another." The words strike like thunder, not because they are loud, but because they are honest. He unbuckled his mic, passed it to a flustered crew worker who had run over in silence, and stepped toward the lip of the stage. No rage, no foot stomping, no big finish, just measured disappointment. They continued walking as the room stayed frozen. No closing comments, no music, just the echo of his footstep and a few soft gasps behind him. Denzel Washington had vanished from the building. A burst of pandemonium swept through the studio as Denzel disappeared behind the curtain. Producers were in a flap. Assistants scurried about, headsets humming with panic. One senior staff member muttered a curse under their breath, attempting to cue the control booth to cut to commercial at once. Backstage, a number of employees tried to catch up with Denzel, begging him to hang around for segment 2, or at least do a post-show clip to defuse the situation. But Denzel, in his customary composed but authoritative voice, put a stop to it. "This isn't what I agreed to. I came here to talk to people." not be baited for headlines. His aide handed him his coat as he walked calmly down the corridor toward the door. Stateside on set, the co-hosts were left in stunned discomfort. Joy Behar attempted to laugh it off, commenting, "Well, I guess I struck a nerve." But no one laughed, not even Ana Navarro, who would normally say something sarcastic about anything. Tension was still present, and the cameras continued to roll. Whoopi eventually spoke once again, attempting to get the show back from where it was teetering. "Look, folks, we love lively discussions here. That's what The View is all about. But sometimes things do get heated, and it's not the result anybody wants." Her gaze crossed Joy's briefly. The word in her eyes was unmistakable. That crossed the line. In minutes, Twitter lit up. Clips of Denzel's "maybe people need to think better" monologue started going around like crazy. Fans, celebrities, and influencers started weighing in. Denzel responded with dignity. "Always does, always will." Joy Behar attempted it. Denzel put an end to it. "We require more even-tempered integrity like Denzel. Not every minute of every day needs to be a viral moment." Even viewers who had never watched The View were now looking for the clip, sharing screenshots and reaction videos. So Denzel walks out and respect works both ways. Trended worldwide within an hour. Internally, ABC executives were furious. The interview had been derailed and worse, had offended a guest producers had taken weeks to line up. One anonymous crew member was cited in a media report later that day saying, "Denzel was here to discuss his movie, and we lost that chance because someone needed to pursue controversy. It was a nightmare." Producers convened an emergency post-show meeting to sound the alarm on damage control. Joy was pulled aside and asked to make a statement, according to reports. Whether she would or not was uncertain. Denzel Washington didn't have to scream. He didn't have to demean. He didn't even have to name-call. His actions, and more so his words, did all the talking, and that made it so effective. In a world where takedowns and shouting matches are the norm on social media, Denzel reminded everyone what presence truly is. Not provocation, not performance, just truth, spoken with peaceful authority. The dust hadn't even settled when Denzel Washington exited the studio. He had walked off the View set with quiet dignity and strength, but the ripple effect of his departure was only just beginning to shake the entertainment universe. It took mere minutes. Social media sites went into overdrive. Hashtags, Chashur Denzel walks out, Chash respect Denzel, and Chashur The View chaos were on the world's trending topics before the live show even concluded. Footage of the confrontation, raw, unedited, and uncomfortably human, was posted to TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube by members of the studio audience and internet viewers who had captured the portion from their TVs or live streams. Some of the most viral clips reached 1 million views in less than an hour. All platforms were on fire. Reaction videos, opinion threads, and commentary ruled the algorithm. Some trimmed the exact moment Denzel leaned in and uttered his now famous line, "Let me be clear, you don't get to tell me how to use my voice." Others captured the moment when he stood up, spoke to the audience with dignity, and walked off from the set. In an age where fame tends to send stars viral for meltdowns or scandals, this was different. This was a man standing away from disrespect, without raising his voice, and the world couldn't turn away. The chasm was immediate, though not even. Most fans came to Denzel's defense. His fans applauded him for his calmness, his modesty, and his refusal to be drawn into a debate that didn't respect his limits. Denzel was there to sell his art, not be politically ambushed. He handled that with dignity. No shouting, no drama, just quiet strength. Joy Behar owes Denzel and the audience an apology. That was uncalled for. Celebrities and public personalities weighed in as well. Viola Davis took to Twitter to say, "Denzel's voice is strong, and so is knowing how to use it. Proud of this king." Director Antoine Fuqua, who has collaborated with Denzel on several films, wrote on Instagram, "This man doesn't have to yell to be heard. He's always about action, not noise. Respect." But not everyone saw it that way. A minority of commentators leapt to Joy Behar's defense and said she was just doing her job as a TV talk show host. Political pundits particularly argued over whether or not celebrities ought to have a moral duty to comment on politics, particularly when questioned on public forums. Yet even among those who disagreed, there was widespread consensus that the venue was not appropriate. If The View were going to engage in a political discussion, they ought to have set up the segment in that manner. You don't surprise a guest. Later, The View's official social media accounts released a brief, diplomatically phrased message. We respect Mr. Washington and apologize that the discussion got derailed. Live TV has surprises. We are still thankful for his visit and his contributions to the arts. It was a bland response, obviously designed for damage control. A standard network effort to put the fire out without blaming anyone. But audience members weren't placated. In the comments section of the post, viewers insisted on more. That's not an apology, one commented. This was a big mismanagement, and your crew has to take responsibility for it. Others were criticizing the show for permitting an arena where guests, particularly guests of Denzel's caliber, do not feel respected or safe. One wrote, "You brought on a legend to your stage and used him as a punching bag for opinions." Shameful. If people were anticipating Joy Behar to walk back or apologize for her words, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. During a post-show interview with a New York area radio station, Joy clarified her stance. "Look, I don't apologize for asking difficult questions. That's what we do on this show. We question people. That's what we're supposed to do. Denzel is a big boy. He can take it." The internet was not pleased. Her critics condemned her as tone-deaf, dismissive, and more interested in protecting her image than taking responsibility for an egregious mistake. "Not about asking difficult questions," tweeted one person, "about ambushing a guest who wasn't present for that kind of discussion." Others wondered if Joy's behavior was part of a trend, going too far in interviews in the name of journalism, when really it was on the edge of disrespect. Insiders for The View disclosed that producers were enraged behind the scenes, not so much because of Joy's queries, but because the confrontation had overshadowed what was intended to be a big-profile feature guest appearance. It had taken weeks of working with the team to get Denzel booked, meticulously setting up the segment around his new movie, a film already being targeted as an Oscar favorite. An unnamed producer divulged to an Entertainment Observer, "This was a great opportunity, and it was blown, entirely derailed. Denzel wasn't a guest, he was the guest. This hurts our credibility with other A-listers." And that wasn't all. Apparently, a number of other future celebrity guests, some big movie stars and musicians among them, had started reconsidering their visits. Some were said to be requesting advance interview clauses that protected against political queries, and others were flat-out freezing communication with the booking staff. The ripple effect was not just real, it was touching not only Joy, but the whole show's image. Between them, Denzel Washington himself didn't react straight away on social media. No coded tweets, no live diatribes, no reactive interviews. Instead, at around midnight that night, he uploaded a plain, 2-minute video to his X, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. Filmed in black and white, with no background music or glamorous edits, he sat in an empty room, wearing casual attire, and spoke candidly about the situation. "Today didn't go as I would have expected. I came here to speak about a film that means a great deal to me. A tale of suffering, redemption, and healing. And the conversation went somewhere unexpected. I'm not upset, but I do think in boundaries. I think in respectful conversation. And I think we all, regardless of how public your platform, your voice is still yours. I will always stand up for what I think, whether you notice it or not. And I thank all those who choose kindness, simplicity, and truth." It went viral as well. Celebrities reposted it with comments such as "class act," "pure grace," and "lead by example." Fans filled the comment section with words of praise. Thousands wrote such things as, "This is how you resolve conflict, with calm and character. Thank you for being a role model and not an actor." Denzel didn't leave. He stood tall. By the following morning, the episode had ignited a wider debate on daytime television, celebrity interviews, and how close is too close between tough questioning and ambush journalism. A number of talk show hosts, podcast producers, and journalists covered it in their forums. When does tough questioning cross the line into disrespect? Are celebrities obligated to owe political views to the public? Is daytime TV getting too sensationalized for its own good? The takeaway from most was this: audiences are hungry for authenticity, but they also want decency. And although Joy Behar said she was just doing her job, others suggested that doing your job does not preclude remembering your guest as a human being, first and foremost. When The View returned the next morning, viewers tuned in to determine whether the moment would be tackled. The opening segment was subdued, no music, no grand jokes. The host seemed fatigued, strained, and rather conscious of the elephant in the room. Whoopi began with a brief speech. As you all witnessed yesterday, the show took a rather unexpected direction. Occasionally we disagree. Occasionally things get rather heated. That is the way of live television. But we move forward, we learn, and we stay grateful to those who grace our stage. Joy said nothing. For the first 10 minutes of the show, she remained quiet, flipping through notes, avoiding eye contact with the camera. Within a day, one walk-off became a watershed media moment, not because it was boisterous or explosive, but because it revealed a more profound reality about celebrity, privacy, and the way we treat one another on public display. Denzel Washington reminded us of something important. Silence does not equal absence. Dignity does not equal weakness. And walking away isn't quitting, it's opting for peace. Before the sun came out the next morning, the world had already seen Denzel Washington's walk out from The View at least 100 million times. Excerpts of his assertive yet peaceful departure dominated the internet. Headlines went wild with such expressions as, "Denzel shuts down live TV host," "Hollywood icon silences the noise with class." Why Denzel Washington's silence spoke the loudest. But unlike most stars who find themselves in a media maelstrom, Denzel didn't play it up. He didn't rant on a podcast. He didn't hold a press conference. He didn't send out a tweet in all caps. Rather, in classic Denzel style, he allowed the commotion to pass and waited for the right moment to speak with intention. At 8:30 a.m. on the dot, Denzel Washington put up a straightforward video message on his official Instagram account. No filters, no flashy editing, just him. Wearing a simple black t-shirt, sitting in a dimly lit room, he stared straight into the camera. Eyes firm, voice earthy. His face was not angry. It wasn't even frustrated. It was the look of a man who had weathered storms before and emerged unscathed. The message was just 47 seconds long, but those 47 seconds were more powerful than most an hour-long interview. Occasionally, he started slowly, you enter a room anticipating discussion and depart with the understanding it was showdown. Healthy debate is something I have great respect for. I encourage questions, even tough ones, but I won't be goaded into sound bites or utilized as grist for controversy. I wish The View well, and I thank those who will listen respectfully and speak deliberately. Then he nodded very slightly, genuinely, and the screen went to black. No hashtags, no narcissism, no film promo, simply an honest departure. The reaction was swift. In a span of an hour, the post garnered more than 6 million views, with more than 400,000 comments flooding in from the globe. Denzel's humble message was a trending moment in itself, not due to outrage, but grace. A-list celebrities, directors, and performers filled the comments with notes such as, "This is why Denzel will always be the gold standard." Regina King. "You didn't raise your voice, but you raised the bar." Morgan Freeman. Every word landed like a stone in a still pond. Pure wisdom. Ava DuVernay fans of all ages shared the same sentiment. He said more in 30 seconds than others say in 30 minutes. That's why Denzel is the king. Calm, classy, controlled. This man just turned a media ambush into a masterclass in emotional intelligence. It took a long night of contemplation before the decision was made to speak, according to sources close to the Washington team. "He's always been intentional with his voice," said one of the veteran publicists. "He doesn't respond in the moment. He thinks, he prays, and then he selects the message. Not for headlines, but for meaning." Denzel's camp discussed whether or not to speak up at all. But Denzel himself was the one who demanded that he needed to leave others in the know, not in conflict. He didn't want to fight fire with fire, the source said. He wanted to leave a footprint of truth without contributing to the noise. And so he did, the entertainment industry noted. By this point, everyone from Warner Brothers to Netflix had seen the clip. Public relations departments, managers, and publicists began re-examining their booking policies for talk shows. Some insiders in the industry indicated that Denzel's walk-off caused an internal memo at a number of talent agencies, advising clients to insist on getting exhaustive pre-interview breakdowns before sitting for live shows. One executive at a big talent agency was anonymously quoted as saying, "That moment made every celebrity wonder, am I going into a promo or a trap? It's revolutionizing the game." And while The View had been built on years of fiery debates and incendiary segments, Denzel's incident galvanized discussions about boundaries, particularly with non-politician or pundit guests. Sources close to Denzel say the answer's doubtful, at least for now. "He's not mad, he's not bitter," the source added, "but he's guarded now. If he ever comes back to a day's set again, it'll be with ironclad demands." And that's what the fans think too. His fans think Denzel doesn't have to appear on talk shows to sell anything. His name sells a movie. And some argue that his walk-off promoted his new film more than any interview possibly could. Denzel didn't lose anything. He won the room by leaving it, one entertainment writer said. Nevertheless, for fans who are waiting for him to return to shows such as The View, The Talk, or even late-night talk show interviews, then it might be a long time coming, and possibly an extended farewell. Since Denzel's video has gone viral, Joy Behar has noticeably remained quiet. No follow-up remarks, no social media updates, no fill-in appearances on her regular radio circuits. In accordance with sources, she has been requested by network officials to keep a low profile, as the backlash rages on. Even The View's ratings suffered a temporary dip the next day, with significant declines in major demographics, particularly among viewers between the ages of 35 to 55. While Joy's allies insist she was just doing her job, some insist she blew it by not being able to read the room and refusing to issue a genuine apology. This wasn't just a moment of celebrity. It wasn't just another talk show scandal. This was a cultural checkpoint, a reminder that not every question deserves an answer, and not every platform has the right to demand one. Denzel's handling of the situation didn't just protect his dignity, it challenged an entire industry to reevaluate how it treats guests and how it defines tough conversations. He proved that grace isn't weakness, that walking away isn't quitting, that being quiet does not make your voice louder. Within a week, there were innumerable fan cuts that surfaced online, collections of Denzel's quotes, walkout clips, and inspirational music tributes. One of the clips went viral on YouTube with this title, "Denzel Walks Out But Walks with Honor." It amassed more than 20 million views within 48 hours. Among the comments, "I took this to my son and said, 'This is what a man does under pressure.' He didn't lose his cool. He maintained his integrity. That's the stuff of legend." We could use more Denzels speaking, not more loud ones, more wise ones. In an outrage culture that's fixated on who shouted the loudest, who clapped back the quickest, and who won the battle of the sound bites, Denzel Washington did something unusual. He trudged through a firestorm and emerged cleaner than everybody else, not by screaming, not by pulling others along, but by occupying his truth and standing firm against being remolded by pressure. That's not only grace, that's strength. And that's why, to this day, Denzel Washington continues to be one of the world's most revered voices. Not because he speaks the most, but because when he does, the world listens. So what did you think? Did Joy Behar go too far by forcing Denzel into a political discussion he never agreed to do? Or was she simply doing her job as a feisty interviewer? One thing's certain. This exchange will find itself in the annals of talk show history as one of the most surprising and explosive walk-offs ever. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more celebrity battles, explosive interviews, and real Hollywood drama.